Now on the AMP'D UP211 podcast, triathlete Mabio Costa. Born with a congenital condition that stunted the growth of his left foot, he has lived much of his life with a prosthetic limb on his left leg. This 50-plus elite athlete continues to compete in his class and inspires anyone who encounters him. Since becoming a U.S. citizen in 2001, Mabio has competed with Team USA multiple times and continues to challenge himself physically and mentally. It is our pleasure to welcome to the AMP'D UP211 podcast, Mr. Mabio Costa. Mabio, good to see you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hope I didn't scare you there. So great to have you on the show, Mabio. And where are you at the moment? It looks like you're at work.
Yeah, today it's a busy Friday here for us at POA Orlando. So
absolutely,
but it's a happy Friday as always.
And tell the audience what you do with POA.
Well, I am a prosthetic technician, but I work on the liner making and making sure that we have the good fitting for all the liners that we make here.
Wow,
custom line.
Very, very critical part of the process are those liners. I can speak to that as well, given that I'm an amputee like yourself. Walk us through that process a little bit. Tell us what you're looking for usually in that process with your patients.
Well, first of all, they're never going to tell you that, but my job is the most important one here. And I'll explain you the reason. Once we have the patient, we cast the patient for a new liner, and that cast comes to me. I have to scan that cast, send to the computer, make sure that once that it's made, it's going to fit well. I have to create the male and the female side. So once we pour the silicone in between, and 8 hours later, it's cured. If my job is not done well, we have a lot of patients out of state, out of the country. If I don't do my job well, next day when they fit that liner, if it doesn't fit well, we lost 24 hours. So it's very important that the liner fits at the first fitting. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble. But I've been doing this for 14 years, and that's what I say. The liner, the custom liners that we make, it is like your second skin. You got to be right over, and you got to be feeling, amazing with that liner. Cannot be too tight, cannot be too loose, but has a way that is going to make you feel a way that you never had before with custom liners.
Yeah, and so many amputees, myself included, I do not wear a custom liner. I've worn a standard liner, and I wouldn't say have struggled with it. However, if I was to ever attempt some of the things that you do when we talk about triathlons and going the distance, so to speak, no way, man. I would absolutely never make it with the liner I'm wearing because, where I notice, let's call it margin or, when things get bunched up, as we say, with liners, usually that comes from high-level activity, and then you're constantly resetting that liner, right? Because it's not. These are expensive things, so there is some technology in them. However, they are not truly fitted to all the nuances of your residual limb.
And as you know, in activity that you do, as you go minute by minute, hour by hour, your volume decrease.
Yes.
And if you have something that was really made for you in that point, that means you're going to be losing a lot of there.
Absolutely.
And that's about the custom liner. Although I must say that I have a lot of friends in South America, I'm originally from Brazil, that they use off-the-shelf liners. And that's the only thing that they have, so they got to do it. It is doable, but of course, to a higher level, you got to go custom. There's no other way. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there is no other way. I would agree, and that's what I hear in the community. I've done some reading on you, and I appreciate your transparency in your website. I appreciate how you put yourself out there. on social media. You are an inspiration to us all, and your history as an amputee is rich, and it's full of massive, accomplishments, and especially given that you and myself, although most people wouldn't think we're the same age, they'd look at me and go, "Well, that's the old guy," and then Mabio's the young guy. We are about the same age, so I look at you, and of course, I think, well, shit, man, anything's possible. I mean, this guy's my age, and look what he's doing, you know? So I appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm fascinated by your history as an amputee, where you're from, because of course I have friends that, like yourself, became U.S. citizens, but were born in Brazil. And I think where I want to start the interview is going back to that 12-year-old Mabio that found out he's going to lose part of his limb. And you know, obviously in our 50s, we remember, I feel like I remember certain things from my childhood. 12 years old seems like an awfully long time ago. Um, but what do you recall? I mean, when you reflect on those moments when your life changed in that regard, I mean, what process do you go through in your mind?
You got to remember something that back in the days, back in Brazil, everybody had a dream. Every kid that grew up had a dream. Oh, I want to be a soccer player. I want to have a Ferrari when I grow up. I want to have I want to be famous. My only dream as I grow up was to be able to wear two sneakers. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
I was born, as you read on my I'm very open about everything. Is that I was born with a mouth. I did it was a birth defect. So I have the left foot with only two toes, but from the knee down it never grew. So that's when the problem started. Um, then when my mom changed the doctor and was a young doctor, said, no, let's cut that off because that's going to be much better. And he said that straight in our face. And my first question was, would I be able to use shoe sneakers? And he said, yes. So I said, let's do it. That's my dream. Let's have that done, you know. And again, we're talking about back in the 80s now. And it was something that I knew that would be better for me back then, you know.
Yeah.
And passing through this whole time, and now going back to the liners, and sometimes I see a patient or other, complaining about a little bit on the liner, and I was like, brother, back in the 80s, we had no liners. Was the jump direct in there as I did everything else? Of course, things change for better. But yes, growing up and going back to the age, it's hard to look at the mirror and say, Mab, you are 55. I don't feel like that. My body doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
And remember, I stopped racing for 9 years because, I did everything. I represent Team USA many times. And there was a time I said, no, that's enough. My body, I'm taking too much. And then one day my daughter came to me and said, Dad, I never saw you racing. And I said, well, so let me train 2 months and let's do a local race.
Yeah.
And it felt amazing that doing that race, and crossing the finish line and being so close to my PR. Said, well, let's keep on doing.
So, yeah, and I mean, I get choked up when I hear people's stories that involve inspiration that's drawn from their children, something that their kids had hoped for or wanted. So much of my personal comeback in my life had a lot to do actually with my granddaughter. I was, going through a number of surgeries, obviously ended up losing a limb too, in my 40s. But the thing that kept me going was, at the time, my granddaughter had just been born. She had never met me. She didn't know me, but there's that feeling of, well, what do I want to leave behind? Will my granddaughter look at a picture and say, oh yeah, that's That's my grandpa. That's my mom's dad. I never knew him. He left this place before I ever got a chance to know him. And I kept saying to myself, well, no, no, no. I want this person to know me. I want her to ask me questions, to get to know me beyond just maybe a face on a photograph, to have my granddaughter come up to me and say, "Hey, Grandpa, do you mind if I play with your robot leg?" And then
Priceless.
exactly,
Priceless.
and then run off with my leg, right? And the family's laughing, and that's, a wonderful moment to be able to experience that and say, okay, I did it. I got to meet her. She's part of my life. She will remember me more than just some vague, person or memory or something. So yeah, when children are involved, but going back to you growing up in Brazil and experiencing life as a young amputee, and so many of these stories that I'm fascinated by, like your own, are people that I refer to, and I think you sort of fit this category of lifers, let's call them, that this has just been a part of their life for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to understand, because let's face it, when I was young, and you may have been different because you definitely seem like an extrovert to me. I was a very shy kid. I struggled to make friends. I struggled to get to know people. I was very insecure. So I always think to myself, let's say I had lost a limb during those formative years of trying to figure out who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you're sort of managing that difference from everyone. And I mean, I don't know what the technology was like when you were 12. I don't know necessarily what the healthcare system looked like in Brazil when you were 12. I mean, the friends that I do have from Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they talk about certain aspects of that system, let's call it, that were pretty antiquated. I mean, like pretty screwed up.
And
And
it's still,
well,
and
there
it's
you
still like
go.
that.
Well, there you go. So can you help the listeners understand what that experience was like? I mean, growing up in Brazil, you're 12 years old, you're losing a limb, what did all that feel like for Mabio?
One thing that I must say, I am the person that I am today because of my mom. My mom was a nurse back in Brazil, and she never treated me as a disabled person. Okay. And one thing that I always made fun of myself before people started making fun of myself. So by the time that I had my leg amputated and I put my first prosthesis, was the time that we have the $6 million that was showing on TV. So in Brazil was a big thing. It was a 9 o'clock Monday night, 9 p.m., and everybody was watching.
So the
So
$6 million man was the show.
yes, it was the show, with Steve Majors.
Yeah.
So so and I'll tell you, I keep on trying to reach out to him, and I have to reach out to him because I must say that the easy childhood that I have was because of that show. Every time that we're gonna play, oh, let's bring Mabio, the $6 million man, it was me.
Yeah.
And every time that I was making fun of me before people make fun of me, and I was very open about my problem. Let's say that, and and again, back in Brazil, back in the '80s, my first leg was made of wood, plastic, and whatever they found in there. And of course, back in the days, you walked in, they made the measurements. Next, a week later, you come back, they put it on. Goodbye. That same day in the afternoon, I was playing soccer. But you got to remember that before that, I used something that really helped me out to walk, but was very heavy. So having a much lighter was much easier for me.
Hmm.
First amputee to walk in a shopping mall in my city. My city is called Goiânia, is a capital of the state of Goiás. that stay is like an hour and a half from Brasilia. And everybody was looking at me like, oh, who is that guy? Who is that kid without a leg and walking shorts? Because back then was when everybody started to go into the malls to shopping to meet people. And I was like, so everybody in my city, 2 million people, everybody, I won't say everybody, but everybody knew who was one-leg guy. It was me.
Yeah.
Because that's the only guy, the only kid that was walking in shorts.
Yeah.
Again, it was never a problem for me. For me, the problem was when I was not noticed for what I was doing. And I knew what I was doing all the time. And that was my main goal, was to show that, listen, here I am. That's who I am. That's who I look like. And that's how you're going to get it.
So, yeah. And I think that's, I mean, let's face it, it's very much could even be served as great advice in terms of, you know, I'm pretty good at self-deprecating humor, especially as I get older.
Exactly.
I'm like, I feel really young, and then I take my shirt off and I realize I'm not really young anymore. But you know, and it's like the hair thing, you know, I mean, you and I mean, we have the same barber, you know, so
Exactly.
right. Let it shine, I always say. So I think that offers a lot in that space of, let's say, a parent, someone that is, you know, has a child that is going through an amputation for some reason, and trying to understand what components make all of that tolerable. I know, you know, POA specifically helps all kinds of children. So incredible organization. So the other thing I go to is, given that, let's say, the technology in the 80s was somewhat antiquated, what were you able to do, and were your activity levels such that you know, how long did it take, and I'm trying to phrase this correctly, how long did it take for you to get to a point where you felt like, hey, you know, I'm athletic, like I can do things as an amputee, and I think I could pursue maybe becoming a world-class athlete. I think that's possible. And when does that light bulb go off?
Well, I always was a swimmer. Okay. I used to swim since the age of 7. And even back then, because, you know, in my city, in Brazil, especially in Brazil, that's when the whole Paralympic thing started back then. And I was always able to beat able-bodied kids. So I knew that I was pretty good in the water. Okay. And you know, once you're born Brazilian, they think that you should play soccer, no matter what. If you don't have legs, if you're blind, whatever, you have to play soccer.
Yeah.
And that's why we all have so many soccer players, although our team sucks lately. But the point is that when I put my leg on, you know, my first prosthesis on, and I started playing soccer, and playing soccer and doing everything, and I knew how light it was in comparison to what I used to have. And the amazing thing is that as I started playing soccer and I started playing against able-bodied kids, things changed in the sense that they're like, oh, you cannot do that. Or maybe you cannot do this. Or no, maybe you cannot be playing forward all the time. And actually, they are pushing me to do that. And that's when I started being, you know what, let me start running. Let me do this. Let me do that. And running for me back then, it was painful. It was very, you know, there was no way that I could run, let's say, a mile or a mile and a half, that when I finished and I took my socks off, because there was no liners back then again, it was blood, and takes me like 3 or 4 days to recover. So that was the bad side of it.
Yeah.
And when they started doing triathlons, and 85 in Brazil, in Brasilia, and they said, well, there is no amputees that we know doing triathlons. So I said, guess what? I'll be the first one. And I did. It was painful, but I saw that I could open from there. And that was the main idea, to start doing the triathlon. And then I came, oh, I cannot be the only one doing this. I got to have more people to do this. And that's when the idea came out about triathlon the way that it is today.
Yeah, it's incredible when I hear about these stories of sort of suffering through the pain just because you didn't have the gear. We didn't have the custom liners. We didn't have some of the technologies that we have today. And for you to have been an amputee as long as you have and seen that evolution of technology and seen how far it's come, but not only that, you've employed it. You've taken all of that education, all of that equipment, and you've applied it in real life. So when I talk to you, I think, well, this isn't just someone that figured out how to be active. This is someone who actually understands the science behind how you become active, right? Because you see so if I came to you and I said, well, Mabio, I want to be able to run. I've done all my gait training. I can walk well. I can briskly walk. I can walk a 5K. I feel like that's my next step. I feel like you're the person I would reach out to and say, okay, how do I go to the next level? Like, what is the next steps in that?
Correct. I think that the main thing that remembering back in the days when I was doing triathlon week after week, and I think that what you need to do the most is to put in your mind that you're capable of doing it. There is no way, and I'll pay $1 million for any amputee that comes to me today, including myself, that say I run without pain. There is no such a thing. There is no way. Oh, I have an amazing life as an amputee. I can do everything without pain. No, we can't. First of all, even for able bodies, if you don't have pain, that means you're not doing 100% of what you're supposed to do. In the bike, if at the end of that ride, you're not feeling pain on your butt and your legs, means you have not done a very good ride. So everything's about pain. Now talking about an amputee, it's more pain than ever, but you have to learn how to live with that. You have to learn how to make that pain in a way that's not going to be so painful that you can finish that 5K, that you can finish that 10K in a better way.
Yeah, I think that's so truthful, because let's face it, very often, the higher performing amputees, let's say the elite out there, the people that sort of project this very, sexy, marketable kind of look in terms of amputees. There's a whole other camp of amputees, people with limb differences, that'll say, those people, it comes easy to them. And to hear someone like yourself say, no, it's really, really painful to go through these trials and to be able to train, to compete, and then know what to do in between those sequences of events to keep yourself in the game, to stay focused and know how to treat your body so that you can do it. Because so much of it comes down to that residual limb. And I think about someone like you who's doing everything that you are and that you've been an amputee for so long. I mean, I thought I saw you post something about your limb recently, but tell me, what's a setback for you in this now kind of today space? What's a setback for you right now?
Uh, Let me see. I mean, as you know, I stopped racing with amputees about a year and a half ago. So, in order to race with able bodies on my age group, I have to train much more than I used to do. Uh, my goal right now is to qualify for the nationals as a normal person. So, my training now is much more than when I was in my 30s. Okay. Of course, we have problems. We have ungrowing hair. We have, a day that there is a rock that I didn't see and I stepped out with my blade. Little things that, makes me, it sets back in a way of training. And you're right. You saw something that because of the training, I shrink so much by Friday. Today, because of the whole training, today I have to start my running at least with a 10 ply, no matter what, because of the training during the week. And let's say by any chance I decide, you know what, let me go to a 7 ply or 5 ply, knowing that I'm not supposed to do that, but I do sometimes, I hurt myself.
Yeah.
And the setback of 2 or 3 days waiting for that to heal kills me, because I know in that same time someone else is training more than I do. But and again, what I believe now is that and amazingly lately I didn't know that, because everybody say, oh, you inspire amputees, and I realized that 85% of the people that reach out to me are non-amputees. Every time that I pass someone on the race, because right now my 5K is the strongest that I have ever, and again, at age 55, I can, I just did a 5K a couple of months ago at 20:25, and when I pass, of course, in triathlon, you lose some time because of you just came from a bike. So I can do a 23 at my age group, and I beat all able bodies on the 5K. And at the end, they come to me and say, I couldn't catch up with you. What do you have? Does that give you an advantage? So, well, if you think it does, just cut your leg and try. Right? Yeah. Idea is, I know that I have, my goal now is 2023, 2024. 2 more years. Age 56, I will retire for good. I never retired though. Because people, I thought you retired. I said, no, I never retired. I stopped racing, but I never retired. By the end of next year, my goal is to retire.
Yeah.
Also, when it comes to amputees, and I have a lot of amputees that no name, that they are a part of the USA team, and they come to me and said, what do you do? I want to be at your age doing what you do. 26, 27, 30 years old. So at 55, I'm stronger than ever. And I believe that anyone can do it. But in the same time, I want to tell you said, that was, for us, old people, there is no much vision. Like I do race every other week, and sometimes 4 times a week. 4 times a month. I'm sorry. 4 times a month. I have a race every weekend. And every race that I do, I can finish top 5 against able bodies. Okay? And again, people still look at me as an old guy trying to prove something. There is nothing to be proved anymore. I'm just here showing that we can be here no matter how old you are, what type of amputation you have, and that's my main goal. Even though sometimes, I know that people, get sponsorship from other people because they look nice, they look younger.
Sure.
And I'm here fighting for my space in the sun, for my spot in the sun.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard because people look at me like, why am I going to sponsor you? You're old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm old, but I'm still doing everything, and I'm still bringing people to the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, you're definitely what I would perceive as a unique commodity, and certainly someone given that spotlight could really, really help so many understand that age is just a number, and it's really more about what's in your head and in your heart than it is anything else. Because so much of what you're describing is it's being able to accomplish something through sheer will and grit. And that's what I find most people that reach those milestones will say. It's always me against myself. It's all in my head, and getting past those barriers is how I do that mentally, and that somehow carries my body, through the rigors of pain, through the rigors of soreness, whatever you're experiencing in that space. And the thing I want to talk about too, because as I'm getting older as well, I find that there are two other components for me that seem to be major sort of determining factors as to how good I feel on the daily. One is nutrition, and the other one is the amount of sleep that I am getting. Because when I was young, my 20s, I did not need sleep. I could sleep 3-4 hours a night, go at it the next day, work a full day, work out, go out with my friends, drink, okay? Get 3 or 4 hours of sleep and crank it right back up the next day. Whereas now, as I've gotten older, that 6-8 hours is almost like critical to me feeling recharged, refreshed, clear, and ready for the day. And then there's the nutritional piece, which I was not very, let's call it, food sensitive when I was young. And there are
Okay.
certain foods now that just honestly, Mabio, they just make me feel like shit. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
feel good. I'm a Chicago guy, Chicago style pizza, beer. I could tear through that stuff and it never affected me. And, as I've gotten older, there are just certain foods, they may taste good, don't get me wrong, but within an hour, I'm thinking, what on earth have I done to myself?
Have I done it? Yes, exactly.
Yeah, like
Yes.
I have to lay down. And
Yes.
that is not how you want to feel after a meal. Um,
No.
so for yourself in the training piece and everything that you're doing, where do those two components fit in for you?
Well, I always really took care of everything. I love to sleep. If there's two things that Brazilians love the most, is steak and sleep. There's beer as well, but I was never a crazy guy for beer. I drink sometimes. Don't get me wrong, but it's very important, and always has been for me. My 8 hours, no matter what. The other day, 4 days ago, It was raining when I got home. It's Florida. It rains all the time. And I decided to run. I started running at 8 o'clock. It was a 10-mile run. I finished by 9:30. I got home and I decided to eat because it was late. And I said, "Oh, let's eat." Of course, what I had was, most of the things that I ate was protein and then has some carbs. And for some reason, my little girl, the youngest, put some takis in there that she loves so much. Takis that are very spicy thing, and I decided to eat too, just to make fun of her. Oh, Daddy's gonna eat too. Why? Why have I done that? It was a whole night of burning, and But yes, you have to pay attention to everything that you eat, especially after the age of 50. That's the one that we have to. But one thing that I learned a lot about eating, and again, I eat a lot. I love to eat, but the thing that I see that when I talk to other athletes is that the biggest problem for us is alcohol. If we drink too much, and again, I drink on Sundays. I have my barbecue, I have my Brazilian churrasco, and with my picanha, and I drink 1 or 2 beers. No, you have to, but it's very important to take care of our body. And again, when I decide to come back as an athlete again, and again, I'm running faster than I ever did in my 30s. I'm doing everything. And sometimes I have friends that say, how can you at 55 be faster than we were at 30s? It's a simple answer for that. At 55, I know that now is my time. I know that now is the time for training. So if it was before my 30s, if I get home, it's raining like it was, I'll do that tomorrow. No, this time I put my chair on my garage. I waited outside until the rain stopped. And up I went. Because as you said, it's the mind. You have to put the mind to do it. No matter how tired I am, I can see many patients during the day. If I get there and I have to do my 20 miles bike, my 30 miles bike, even if it gets dark, I'm going to do it. It's the mindset that you can do it no matter how old you are, you know? And again, why, since I have this mentality, why I'm stopping next year? Why am I retiring? I'm retiring off traveling. I'm retiring off, doing Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. But I'm going to keep doing my local races. I'm going to keep doing everything that I can around me because it makes me feel alive. It makes me feel like, I'm 55, but look at me, I'm here and I'm beating you guys with 2 legs. So you guys got to be better than that, and that makes me feel better in the sense of taking more care of myself.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the kids, have a 13 and a 10 years old. I want to be here longer for them, much longer.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing why I keep on doing what I'm doing.
It's funny you say that. I was reading an article the other day, and they were talking about, indications of status or success, and they were comparing it by decade. And they were saying that back in the 80s, everything was about money. The only thing that was a prime indicator of success or status or quote unquote, you made it, was money. That's it.
Money.
There was nothing else. That's changed. They're saying now, in this moment, what represents status and success is your physical shape after 40. That if you take care of yourself and you're living well in a healthy space, that is actually considered a form of wealth.
Correct.
That people perceive, okay, these more active lifestyle type people as highly successful, having nothing to do with financial resources. It's simply that you are the master of your domain. You are the person that is in charge, completely in charge of yourself, your body, your temple, let's call it. And that is something that is considered almost like a status symbol now. Like, wow, he's over 40. He's in great shape, takes care of himself. This has become a form of status where in the 80s, you could be a fat slob. And as long as you had money,
have money, that's what matters.
You were somebody,
Yeah.
Which is bizarre now when you think about it. The other thing I was going to ask you about is I know you were at the Amputee Coalition convention, and you did like a unit there. Can you tell me more about what that was? I was at the coalition, and unfortunately, we never bumped into each other at the convention. So tell me about what you were doing there. I want to learn more about that.
Well, I about 11 years ago, I was invited to teach swimming for OPAF. And ever since, I've been, helping them out. And about 6 years ago, I was invited to be the national director for swimming. And I took that with all my heart. I love to teach swimming, especially for new amputees. And one thing that I love the most is not to make someone swim faster. It's to make someone who just lost their legs, especially a girl, especially a woman, to get back into the water. It has nothing to do to get into the water and swim, but has to do of taking that prosthetic leg and walking or hopping or jumping from that chair to the water. For that woman or for that person, just to be able to show to everyone around that I don't have a piece of me, but I can still doing sport, it's priceless. Okay. So at the Amputation Coalition, we had 3 clinics. We always do have 3 clinics with AC, and it's been always amazing. And the past month, I was elected the president of OPAF. So I'm the new president I'm the president elected, but I'll be the new president working starting December 1st.
Congratulations.
And thank you. We have our president now, Travis Young, who did an amazing job keeping OPAF alive. And my goal now is to bring everything together and really work in the sense that this cannot end. And again, we are not here to make Michael Phelps in 2 hours. We are here to make sure that every single amputee who is not an athlete can get into the water, can swim, and you can have a healthy life by doing that. And that's the main goal that we have.
Yeah. So how would you prefer, given that piece, everything that you represent in the athletic space and what you offer the community, even through, um, the organization that you work for now, how do you prefer other amputees or families of amputees reach out to you?
And I'm an open book, as you know. I show everything on my social media. Everyone, there was not one single person that reached out to me that I don't reply.
So
Okay.
so DM's okay. That's pretty direct line to you, is just to send you something in Messenger.
Messenger, search me on Instagram. I'm always open for everything. I'm here to help you out with anything that you need. Always. And just want to go back to something very quick here,
Sure.
if you don't mind, is that you're talking about age, and I really want to touch as much as I can on that. If you see some pictures of me on Instagram or Facebook, I don't have my shirt on. Most of them, I'm showing who I am right now. The reason for that is not because I want to show my body. I want to show that everyone can do whatever they want to do it. If you go back to the same Facebook, to the same Instagram 2 years ago when I decided to do that, you're gonna see that I was about 25 pounds heavier than what I am now. So right now, I am proud of what I am, what I became training, and that's exactly what I pass to everybody. In swimming, in biking, and running, anyone can do whatever they want, amputee or not. It's up to you. Just put in your mind and be consistent in what you're doing. And that's what matters the most.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, for you to be that vulnerable in these, very very kind of transparent spaces on social media, to give that to the community and to represent something that's very transparent, is fantastic, and I appreciate it. And I certainly am one of those people that gravitates to someone like yourself when I see someone thriving in this space, not only talking the talk but walking the walk as well. And in your case, biking and running and swimming and doing all of the things that are on my own radar. I'm an avid cyclist, but I have not made the transition into actually running in a prosthesis. So that's a big goal of mine for 24, is to be able to jog around my neighborhood, and who knows from there. But when I do talk to people like you, Mabio, and I hear your story and I share that energy, that's when I realize anything is possible. That's when it all
And
becomes real.
and when you're gonna do your first race, invite me. I want to be there with you.
I appreciate that. I
Right.
appreciate that. No, it's fantastic to meet you. I appreciate you taking time, obviously, out of your workday to visit and share your story some more, because people are curious. They see pictures, they see postings, they see what maybe we project as this sort of like identity on social media. But to be able to hear your voice and to hear a little bit more about your story and who you are as a human being, makes it all that much better. So thank you so much for being here today. And I'm hoping that we will bump into each other maybe at the next convention. Who knows? We're actually going to be doing a strategic partnership with the Amputee Coalition. We're going to develop some content with them together procure some guests together and jump on some topics together. And we're also going to be, this is kind of a first. I really haven't told anyone this. We're also going to be holding some interviews at the convention in Atlanta, so that we can do some, let's call it at the show episodes, and that way some of our community that either cannot travel, get to the conference, can have some episodes that will give them a sort of a lens to look through and to see what that's all about. So obviously lots of good things coming. And again, Mabio Costa, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to meet you. And my name is Rick Bontkowski. This is the AMP'D UP211 podcast. And we will see you next time. I want to wish everyone health and happiness.